Hi there, my name's Neil Grant, and today we're going to make an ear, or we're going to MacGyver an ear, using a plastic hotel key card. Could be any brand you like, as long as it's nice and flexible, and the Communal Garden paperclip. Now, you're going to have to put yourself in the frame of mind. We're MacGyver, we're locked in a storeroom. These are the only things we've got available to us. And for some bizarre reason, we've got to make an ear. Okay, I'm working in B-Mix, which is a porcelain-based clay. He's probably working in C4 or something. But that aside, we've got to make an ear. So let's get going. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of the clay. I'm going to squeeze it out of my hands. I'm just going to make a base for the ear to go on. So I'm just pressing it down like this. Just make a nice flat area. So I'm going to take my card. I'm just going to start to pull it. So it gives me a nice surface. You can imagine this is the side of the skull we're working on. So I'm going to make this side, the nose side, this side, the back of the skull side. Ear's going to point that way. Now, the great thing about making ears is we come with an inbuilt ear maker. This shape within our hand is great for shaping the ear. So I'm just going to break off a bit of clay. I'm going to start to push it into the hand like this. Now, what you can't quite see on here is I'm making it into a wedge shape because the ear joins right onto the front of the face and then moves away as you head towards the back of the skull. So what you end up with is a shape like that. We look at it from either below or above. So I've got my little ear shape here. I'm just going to manipulate it a little with my hands. So when I'm sculpting, I like to avoid tools for as long as possible because I like the feel of clay and it allows me to connect to the piece. So here we go. We've got our rough ear shape now. Came from that bit of our hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hotel key card. I'm just going to press it flat onto the surface there. So as you can see, I've just pressed it in there. Now I'm going to start to make a basic sort of ear shape. So while the ear is curved, you can break it when you start into a series of just little lines that I'm chopping down with. Now ears are all sorts of different shapes. So let's not get too worried about that. Some of them bulge in the middle here, some of them bulge at the top. I don't think I've ever seen any that are widest at the bottom and narrow at the top, but you never know. So all I've done is I've just gone around and I've just cut in using my key card. I didn't really need to put this line in, it's just to illustrate the shape to you. I've just started to give myself a basic ear shape. There we go. So pretty simple. I'm just going to knock some of those edges off just by pressing card in there. So you see how quickly we got to a pretty easy ear kind of shape. Actually, I'm going to chop this little corner off here just to give me a better looking lobe. There we go. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to take my paper clip. I'm going to use it to draw. I like to draw when I'm doing ears because the ear, if you just look at it, it's quite a complicated thing as a shape to look at. And remembering where everything goes can be a little tricky. So I like to just draw it on. Now, the first thing I'm going to draw on is the sort of this edge that goes all the way around the outside here. Now this thing is called the helix. So I'm just going to pop that in. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw in the opening to the ear canal. So I come round like this. Go around to here, just to begin to sort of, I'm just creating a visual guide for me. There's a little sort of bump here. That fellow's known as the antitragus. There's a little triangle shape here called the tragus. So there's a lot of antes within the ear. So there's this triangle here, called the tragus. We've got this little headland here called the antitragus. We've got the helix. This area within here, it's called the antihelix. Now, I always think of it as a Y, because when you go up the top of it, it's got this little indentation here. So can you see, I can see a Y coming through here now. And that's always a useful mental aid for me. So we've sketched out roughly our ear. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my loop. I'm going to start to carve it out. So I'm going to go deep into the inside here. Pull out that area around the tragus, so still leaving that little triangle intact. So can you see, we're beginning to get a bit of depth into the ear now. Just going to carve that out. Now, one thing you'll be able to do that I can't because I'm trying to keep the piece steady is I would normally rotate this ear around so I can see the different angles. I'm actually doing a little bit of sculpting where I can't actually see where the tool is, which is always a dangerous thing to do, but it's MacGyvering, so danger is part of our MO. I'm then going to take and carve the top out of this antitragus here. Now, I think this area is technically called the triangular fossa, but I just call it the top of the Y. So we start to carve that bit out, and then I'm going to make myself a little tool. What I'm going to do with that, so I've just bent the other end here to give myself a smaller tool to work with. I'm going to start to pull the ridge out around the side here. So I know my hand is covering this at the moment. All will be revealed in a second. So can you see I just pulled this tool all the way around here just to create that ridge. Now that defines for me this area known as the helix. Here's the antihelix starting to develop up. I'm going to dig down a little bit just to start to create a bit of a depression in here. Use the big end where it suits my purposes. So you begin to see we're pulling this area out here. I'm going to dig down a little bit more to create a division between these two areas. Frankly, I need a little bit more clay to go into my anti-helix. It's a bit malnourished. So you begin to see the area sort of start to develop up here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take, as it runs around, and I commonly see this when people are sculpting, they leave this on the surface. This end of the helix actually plunges into this ear canal opening. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to push it and pull it down into here. You see how it's coming in, just blending into the eardrum. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to rid myself of this little area here, which you don't see, because this would normally just go smoothly onto the face. I'll use my finger again, just to push this little tragus area in. I'm going to go a little bit deeper in here, and if we go behind that tragus area, that little triangle, we can dig in really deep there, because that's going right into your ear canal. So when you stick your finger in your ear, that's where it's going. So I've seen many a person in a car next to me at the lights doing. So begin to see we're getting the ear shape develop up here now. Take a little bit off here. Now, don't be afraid, we've got the basic structures in. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to push it a little bit with my fingers just to get it to a more pleasurable shape for me. Now what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take the tool and I'm just going to clear a little ridge around here. Just so I distinguish between the tragus and the antitragus at the bottom. And we begin to get into this earlobe here. Now, earlobes vary all over the place. So I've got a slightly parsimonious one here. I mean, we could always take a little bit of our clay and pop it back on and make it a little bit bigger. As you age, these lobes get bigger, so if you're wanting to sculpt the ears of a young man versus an old man, the old man is going to have a bigger, much bigger lobe, generally speaking, and there'll be a few wrinkles in there. So we're just starting to carve that in. There we go. So we've got all our basic structures in now. I want to just bring that into here a little bit more. Try and push it with my finger. I've got rather large hands, unfortunately, so when I tend to do things like this, they tend to squash. Those with more delicate pinkies will get a better result. But you can see the basic structures are in here now. So just to recap, we've got our tragus, we've got our helix, we've got this Y-shaped anti-helix, we've got our lobe, we've got this little point just here, it's a bit messy at the moment, which is our anti-tragus, or the little head at the inlet. So there we go. Now the thing you mustn't forget to do is the thing your mother always told you, which is to clean behind your ears. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tool now, I'm going to pull it behind the ear here, just to start to remove some material. I'm going to turn this in a minute so you can see what I'm doing. Now this is where our hotel keycard comes in again, useful. Now, if we didn't have the hotel keycard, we might use a wire to get under here just to release this. So there we go. I'm just going to pull this up and start to take you behind the ear. So what I was doing is I was taking my tool, I was just carving back behind the ear here, just to create a bit of separation. So remember we said at the very beginning, front of the ear goes straight onto the face, back of the ear has a separation. So take a bit more clay out of there. So that's our basic ear. Now you're probably looking at it going, well, that's a bit messy, isn't it? And because I'm MacGyver and because I'm locked in this storeroom, I've also managed to find a small paintbrush and a bit of water. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, don't want to use too much water. I'm just going to paint off all these rough bits. So you get a nice smooth finish on your ear. Just to paint off. Try not to sculpt with it if you can. You're just trying to treat the surface. All the sculpting should have been done with your tools. There we just. Now, when I'm doing ears on sculptures, what I normally do is I rough them in, and then I leave them to sit for about 20 minutes, just for the clay to stiffen a bit, so it's a bit easier for me to work with. Sometimes when it comes fresh out of the bag, the clay can be a bit too soft for doing the detail of an ear. So I like to let it just evaporate a little, the water. Give me something a bit more solid to work with. So, just going to clean up this whole tragus area. And you can do this as many times. I'm using quite a rough brush at this stage. What I would normally do afterwards is go back with a gentler brush because it will produce a nicer texture on the surface, something closer to... I've got a slightly softer brush here, just something slightly... It'll give me a nicer surface finish. And what I would typically do is wait till I've finished my sculpture, probably go back with a sponge and do that. So I'm just going to very quickly show you. Here's the ear. You see we need to do a bit of work around there, but basic ear shape. It looks like an ear. It's got all the structures. So we did it with a paperclip and a hotel key card and a couple of... And so here's the finished ear. after I've given it a bit of a clean up. So thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you again soon. Bye bye.